Yeah.
I mean, for listeners again who don't know, like it wouldn't appear as though this conversation is couched in your 20-year journey, your 40-year journey as a philosophy professor, and a
Yeah.
20-year journey with high dose LSD sessions, and
Yeah.
the book that we were referring to earlier is your book on those journeys, as well as you've
Yeah.
written a number of other books. And I'm just curious because what I'm seeing in the world, which is mostly the world that is mediated by a screen at this point, is not the kind of place I really want to be. Both in the sense of I don't want to be where it appears we're going. I don't want to be a part of a system that does the things that it does. You know, like I don't like the fact that I'm a part of this disgusting, distorted thing. And also what I see from the behavior of the people around me. And there's a lot to be said about how social media algorithms and isolation and mental health crises, acknowledged or not, are contributing to this. But I see a lot of toxic behavior, a lot of toxic people, a lot of toxic discussion, sort of like draped in this sort of like this sort of self-confident, self-righteous, almost Machiavellian style, like moralism of like the good versus the evil, and the good is me, and anyone that disagrees is like the violent devil I must cast out, and whatever else. And I don't feel good about what I'm seeing about the world, and it makes me want to just like hide away inside. Now, that said, couching this in psychedelics and looking at it as a large psychedelic, I'm using air quotes for listeners, process that's happening collectively on a global scale, not just with humanity, but although we don't know what the feelings and the thoughts or perspectives are of the birds and the salamanders and the whales and whatever, you know, they're going through that with us. So it's like a planetary experience, right?
Yeah.
That when I see these parts of myself in a psychedelic session, it's no more comfortable by any means. It's equally as ugly, you know, and I want to hide away from that too. And yet, one of the things you talk about in your book is that we need to learn, as a part of the psychedelic journey, we need to learn how to not turn away from our pain, or from that pain. I mean, like the pain of touching a hot fire, we turn away from, but this kind of pain, that we learn to turn towards it. And I'm wondering if you could just, that's not a clear question, but can you just comment on that?
Yeah. You know, the starting point of serious psychedelic work is taking complete responsibility for one's own shadow. And you just go into a room, close the door, lock the door, you're inside by yourself, nothing there but you and your mind. And you go into the parts of your being which are, at least initially, the most daunting, the most intimidating, the most frightening, the ugliest, the ones we like to acknowledge the least. You know, but the commitment is there to take that on, to enter into it. When we see that ugliness being manifested in the world around us by people who have not yet taken responsibility for themselves, and they are still in this exterior mode where the shadow is really outside of them, the evil and the darkness and the really ugly things are outside of them. That's a very different world, isn't it? And I think this whole process of breaking down process that we're going into is basically going to be breaking down that defense that we have to thinking that, you know, we're the good guys and the other people are the bad guys. And eventually we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that we did this. We created this imbalance. We have benefited from it. We are continuing to generate it in the cars we drive, in the lives we live, in the lifestyles we aspire to. We have done this. We have done it. There's going to come a time eventually where there's no place else to look, but we have to take individual and collective responsibility for the pain that is alive within us and the lives of everyone around us. That really is a pivot point, I think, when we just stop blaming the other, stop blaming previous generations, stop blaming so on and so forth. We really settle in. We're not there yet. Some of us are there yet. I mean, I think the psychedelic community understands these things because that's how you make progress in psychedelic work, is you confront the shadow. Now, when you go into the work, you know that the more you purify, the more you cleanse, the deeper the reward, the deeper the ecstasy, the deeper the teaching. So the more you purify, the deeper the communion. Once you learn that, not only do you become more comfortable facing the shadow, but you actually actively embrace the shadow. You actively embrace pain and suffering, not because you like pain and suffering, but for two reasons. One is because you learned that the deeper the purification, the deeper the ecstasy, and you don't like to suffer, but you like what's on the other side of the suffering. But the second thing is you embrace the pain and suffering, even knowing that a lot of it is not yours. Out of the same compassion that every father has for his children, every mother has for her children, and every teacher has for all of their children, eventually that everybody has for other people. And you embrace the pain, not counting whether it's yours or somebody else's, but because by doing so, you are helping somebody. You are helping other beings that you may never meet. And my experience has been that if you do that, if you are willing to take on more than your fair share of suffering, you reap more than your share of benefit. The universe responds. It can't help but respond. And I think that's going to be happening with us generationally. This generation, the next generation, the generation after that is going to go through suffering more than their share of suffering compared to previous generations. And after they stop kicking and screaming and begin to get down to taking it on and just doing it, I think they will experience the blessings that come from that deep generosity, that profound existential choice to work with the given, even when the given is terrible, even when it kind of crushes your personal life, but you still dedicate yourself to the good of the whole. And in that process, something begins to change, something shifts inside your person. And the more complete the surrender to the process, the more complete the commitment to that process, I think the deeper and the faster the transformation is in our individual lives and our collective lives. So that as we move deeper into this and come through it, I think generationally, we will learn what every psychedelic journeyer learns, that we confront the shadow. There is riches on the other side of this ordeal, and there's no other way to get to it. And in the end, the irony is you kind of end up where you were in the beginning, except you're all cleaned out. You're just all sorts of this gunk is out of your system. So you are you, and you are where you were before, but you literally are living a different life because stuff that you hadn't realized was compromising you and burdening you is no longer there. And something new has taken its place. I think that's where we're going to be going. It's going to take time.